Korea will have a strong presence on the ChemCon Asia 2026 agenda. I'm therefore very pleased to be joined in this ChemConnection video by Hyunjung Lee from Chemtopia to discuss the latest developments in Korean chemical regulations. I'm particularly interested in what companies should be paying close attention to across K-REACH, K-BPR and K OSHA. Hyunjung, let's start with K-REACH.
Thank you, Tiered. Recently, K-REACH has undergone significant changes, particularly in terms of substance classification and management systems. First, the registration threshold for new substances has been increased from 100 kilos to 1 ton per year. On the other hand, for substances below 1 ton, the notification system has been strengthened, introducing the concept of hazard unknown substances, and notified substances are now being disclosed. Another important change is the further refinement of the hazard-based management system. Previously, substances were designated as toxic after registration and hazard assessment. Now, substances are categorized into more specific subcategories such as acute and chronic human toxicity and aquatic environmental hazards, with different criteria applied to each category. These changes go beyond simple classification and are directly linked to regulatory obligations. For example, under the Chemical Control Act, regulatory requirements are no longer applied uniformly based on toxic substance without distinguishing hazard of humans or environment. Instead, they are applied in a more segmented manner. In addition, under the Occupational Safety and Health Act, it has become mandatory to indicate in the MSDS whether a substance is classified as hazardous to humans, etc., or as a hazard unknown substance, further strengthening the linkage between regulations. Overall, K-REACH is becoming more sophisticated and increasingly interconnected with other regulatory frameworks.
Great insights in K-REACH. And how about K-BPR?
K-BPR is also an area that companies need to monitor very closely. One of the most important aspects is managing grace periods and timelines set for each product type. Since the applicable schedules differ by product type, it is crucial to understand and respond accordingly. In addition, for biocidal substance approval, requirements to clearly identify its components have also been strengthened. This directly affects whether a substance is considered an existing active substance or a non-existing one, and it's closely linked to subsequent product approval procedures. Along with this, approval timelines by product type and differences in regulatory application, depending on whether substances are existing or non-existing, are also key considerations. Furthermore, obligations related to treated articles are becoming increasingly important. In particular, for some product types, the enforcement timeline for treated article requirements is approaching, making early preparation essential. Overall, K-BPR is a regulation that requires companies to simultaneously consider timeline management, substance compliance, and product approval strategies.
That's a lot to keep track of. Is K OSHA still undergoing changes as well?
Yes, K OSHA is still evolving and the industry continues to respond to these changes. One of the most significant changes is the grace period for the MSDS submission system has ended. Therefore, all MSDSs for products intended to be placed on the market must be submitted in advance. As the revised system is now fully in force, companies are experiencing various practical challenges in their operations. For new chemical substance hazard assessments, practical issues are arising and related cases are continuously being accumulated. There are also ongoing discussions regarding the application of regulations to polymers. Meanwhile, at the international level, discussions on APAC GHS are ongoing, which may influence Korea's classification and labeling system in the future. In conclusion, while K OSHA is becoming more established from a regulatory perspective, it remains a transitional phase for companies that still requires active compliance efforts. Overall, Korea's chemical regulations are becoming increasingly detailed, more interconnected, and more demanding in terms of actual implementation. Accordingly, companies need to adopt more strategic and integrated approaches to compliance.
Thanks Hyunjung for sharing these insights, and I'm proud to say that all three areas, K-REACH, K-BPR and K OSHA, will be covered by authority speakers at ChemCon Asia 2026 in Singapore in June, together with a strong lineup of industry experts.